This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spectators, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Howdy, spectators. Here we are back for Season 3, Episode 2. I'm the host with glasses, Jake. He's the one with the beard, the magic man himself, Jesus. What's going on, Jesus?
Magic bearded man. Remember, all the magic is in the beard, man. Without the beard, I'm nothing. Okay, so the magic bearded man. Yeah, man, everything's going good, man. Super excited for another rousing episode of Spectales.
We made it 2 weeks in a row. Let's see if we can, continue that that weekly strategy we keep promising people. If this is your first time joining us for Spectales, thank you very much for giving us a listen. Spectales is a comic book podcast that has collectors and creators. What is your Grail tale? Each week, we explore new stories about the comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, and how they inspired new creativity.
We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself.
This week, Jesus, we are introducing something different, something new, although, it kind of feels like it should have, like it was here the whole time, right? Like it's such a natural fit for the show that I think listeners are going to be like, yeah, we already know about this, but we're making it an official thing this week.
For sure, man. I think, something new is always, change is difficult. New is difficult, right? And this isn't a change. This is just an addition, which at the same time, like you mentioned, we've kind of like been playing around with this. We've been talking about this to an extent. We're just basically putting a label on it, right? Like that's all we're doing. Just putting a label on it.
Yeah, exactly. Putting a ring on, putting a label ring on it. I've got my label maker. We're labeling things now. And I think it's going to be a good fit. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. Let's see. So the weird thing about this episode, and I'm just going to be honest with the listeners here, Jesus, we are recording episode 2 for Spectales, but we're recording it before we actually record episode 1. So it's kind of a weird feeling because we're knocking off a lot of rust here. And this is, technically speaking, the first time we are addressing the listeners in season 3. But, everybody who is listening to this isn't hearing this until after episode 1. So it feels like, Marty, we're going back to the future or something like weird like that.
We're in the future, but we're technically in the past.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of stuff we can talk about and we can't talk about. Like at this point, they already know who the first guest was, right?
I think they do, but we can't announce it. We promised ourselves we wouldn't announce it early, so we can't announce
Is this announcing it early or is this announcing it late?
I don't know. It's kind of like, what did they say? Like if a bear shits in the woods, does anybody smell it if nobody's there? Or there's a phrase there.
There's a phrase there somewhere. There's also, Spectaleception. I think that's a movie that came out one time.
Yeah.
Spectaleception, where,
Maybe.
we're incepting. I don't know. One of those things is true. One of them is not.
Either way, we cannot talk about Jason or the guest from the first episode at all.
Don't talk about Jason like that, man, without him knowing that we're talking about Jason.
I didn't even know we said his name. Who said who? For all you listeners out there sticking with us, thanks for coming back for this season. I know we probably said it in the first episode. I'm saying probably because we haven't recorded it yet. I'm assuming I will thank everybody for coming back for season 3, but I'm going to say it again. We do genuinely appreciate all the spectators out there tuning in and joining us for the 3rd season of Spectales. Jesus, we didn't really get to celebrate our 2-year anniversary from when we started this whole crazy thing. And I just wanted to say to you, hey, congratulations and thanks for sticking with me through 2 years.
Yeah, man, it hasn't been easy, right? I think doing something creative like this and having fun talking about comic books. I don't know, man. It's not easy, but it's very fulfilling, right? And I enjoy it. So, thank you for sticking with it too, and being able to do more. I mean, we see the people messaging us, and we see the people talking, wanting to see more or hear more. I'm sorry about Spec Tales. So yeah, man. 2 years into our third year, we've been working on this like tirelessly for this whole hiatus that we've had, and we're really happy to finally get the ball rolling
Yeah, I'm
on
excited to get
episode
this
2.
thing off the ground and I don't know, into the air flying. So let's keep the ball rolling and move right into our first segment.
Recent pickups.
That's right, the recent pickups segment, where we are going to talk about a book or collectible we recently picked up or read. Jesus, would you mind doing the honors?
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk about 3 books. They're not comic books, although I don't know if you can see right here, Jake. This is my reading stack right here, and half of these books have been read, and there's some really awesome books. But I'm not gonna talk about those because I probably already talked about them in last episode, which hasn't been recorded yet. So in the future, last episode, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about books. We're talking about books here.
We're talking about practice.
So we're talking about practice books is what we're talking about. So the first 2 is a set that I want to talk about. I've shown these to you already. It's a little dusty right now with the dust jacket. But these are some resources to a certain era of books. They're called the Photo Journal Guide to Comic Books. Volume 1 is A through J. It's compiled by Ernst and Mary Gerber. And then Volume 2, which is K through Z, also compiled by Ernst and Mary Gerber. And these are a definitive, I guess, or were definitive at some time before the internet, guide to Golden Age books. Now, why am I getting golden? I never talk about Golden Age. Well, for no reason, Jake. I'm not getting these
No
for
particular
these
reason that might
no
might
particular
may not.
reason.
This isn't going to come up in
don't
some
read-
later conversation, right?
Do not read into these Golden Age books and this Golden Age resources. I mean, it has some Silver Age here too. I'm looking at Fantastic Four, so I'm sure like it goes through. But the reason why these are like one, they're a huge resource because they have almost all of the covers themselves. If you look at it, I think you've seen it before. I think our good friend Ryan at Automatic Comics has shown this to us, and he also tells anybody who's looking at Golden Age books to get into it and to buy this book because it just has every feasible cover on there. There's also some controversy with these books because Mr. Gerber put a rating system on them as far as scarcity goes.
Ooh.
Right? There's a scarcity guide in here at the time when this was published, when he did this. And so you got to think back, like when these were initially published, I think they were in the 90s. I remember, I have it somewhere. It was in the 90s, I guess. And there was no internet. So how would you find out what books were published besides going to your local library, seeing if they had all the information? And you might be able to see Hit Comics number 7. Well, what does the cover look like? Because they just said it didn't really have the cover on it. So this guy and his wife went around talking to dealers and collectors and taking pictures of all the covers. And at the same time, they realized that some of these books are harder to find than others, including some that they weren't even able to find to take a picture of. So he said some of them are more scarce, and the more scarce they are, the higher the number they got. And at the time, like I think it's like 1 through 9, he didn't give any a 9. I think the highest he gave was an 8, if I'm not mistaken. I think, I don't know, I gotta remember, or a 10, I don't know. But either way, these two books are huge resource for Golden Age, and learning about the Golden Age and checking out all the cool covers. That, I mean, like the way I look at it is, collectors have certain big books on their mind because they've seen them over and over and over and over, right? Because that's what somebody liked at some point, somebody else agreed with them, and that's it. But there's so many other cool covers on here that like you could find some diamonds in the rough or some needles in the haystack that people don't even know about or haven't seen before. And you're like, man, that's a cool cover. Golden Age books are mainly collected for the covers. Why not get that book if it's affordable, if I really enjoy it? So very, very cool books. Definitely pick them up if you can. These books are actually getting scarce to find too, in decent conditions. They sell them used as well. But that's my first pickup. And then my second pickup is this book, which is a lot harder to find. It's called Art in Time. Have you heard about this book, Jake?
I have not. Tell me about this book.
So this is by Dan Nadel or Nadell. He's the author of the other book.
I'm just okay. Yeah, just going with you.
Author of the other book called Art Out of Time. So Art in Time is this weird book about comic books and Golden Age comic books, even before Golden Age comic books. And it's unknown comic book adventures from 1940 to 1980. So what this guy did is he went out and he highlighted some lesser known artists with really cool artwork. And I mean, you're talking about maybe even full comic books. So like one of them will be, let me see, I'm trying to find one of these pages here where, okay, like this one, Sharon Rudolph, right? Born 1947. And he tells you why, who she is, what she did, what she's famous for, why people don't look at her anymore or look at her art anymore, or where he got lost in translation or whatever. I mean, there's some of them that he has on here where it's like, so-and-so born 1932 ? Potentially, because we don't really have too many. This one, like H.G. Peter, born ? And then died 1958. So he found his way into comic books late in life. So just a lot of like cool artwork from different creators that maybe aren't. I mean, look at it. Have you ever seen this guy's artwork? Like,
I can't say I have, but that's extremely impressive artwork. Mano Metal, nice.
Yeah. So this book has another you know how I am, man. I'm always trying to zig when people are trying to zag. So I'm trying to find an edge in Golden Age for no particular reason at all. I just want to find an edge in Golden Age. If I ever were to want to use that edge for some reason, I want to find it, right? If I can find it. And this one's helped out tremendously because again, some of these books and some of these artists are so different, so unique, so cool. But the nature of comic book collecting is, unless you're really looking for them, unless somebody that has a huge insight into it, you're not going to really know about these books, right? Unless you do the research yourself, unless you do the legwork yourself, you're not going to know about it. So I got these for resources. I've enjoyed looking at them. I've enjoyed reading, seeing this cool artwork from the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. So if anybody wants to get these, I definitely recommend them. Art in Time by Dan Nadell, and then the Photo Journal Guide to Comic Books, Volume 1 and 2 by Ernst and Mary Gerber. And those are my recent pickups.
All right, I have one follow-up question because I remember when our friend Ryan from Automatic Comics told us about the Gerber books. But where did you or how did you learn about Art in Time, the Art in Time?
Well, I bought, those are just two that I'm sharing, but I bought a total of like 6 books. And some of those books reference these books. And so it's just like a little, what is it called? A rabbit hole that you start going. It really is, man. I mean, that's the best I can say it. Like, it's a rabbit hole that you start going through for Golden Age books. And it's like, like, what did it say? It'll say a saying of something about this guy's artwork. And it says, as told to Dan Nadell in Art Out of Time. I'm like, okay, well, what is this? So then I go back to look for that. And I'm like, man, this book is hard to find. I don't think it's in print anymore. And then you start looking for it and it's like $100 because it's not in print. And it's like beat to crap because somebody's dog chewed it or something like that didn't really care for it. And so you're trying to find these books. I mean, I have another one it's called 10 Cent Plague, which talks about the seduction of the innocent and why that came about and the history behind it. So there's so much that goes along with Golden Age and why certain things happen and why we collect certain things and how we collect certain things and things of that nature. So I'm trying, again, the way I work is I try to understand everything as much as I can to give me as much of edge or information and at least what I feel, right? Like I can say, oh, I have an edge, and it's really like, dude, people have been doing this for 30 years. Like,
Hey, whatever makes you feel better, when you're out there
yeah,
collecting and hunting. And I will admit that is one of the fun things, right? You walk into an LCS, you walk into a shop, and you feel like you're armed with more information than the person across from you or something like that. It's a fun feeling. I don't necessarily always feel it. It's not a very
hmm
common feeling for me personally, but when it happens, it makes that hunt all the more fun, especially when you find the
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Very
And
cool.
there's more. There's more books out there that I haven't gotten yet, that I haven't got a chance to read yet, or dig my hands into, dig my whatever teeth into, which I will be acquiring, because it's just, I'm a history buff. I love history, and there's so much history involved with comic books, and kind of where we got to today. So those are two cool books, man. So I definitely recommend them. I recommend them to you too, Jake. I know you like Golden Age stuff, so I'll recommend those to you as well.
Oh, well, I will take that recommendation and put it in my pocket. All right. I am up next for my recent pickup, and this one I have been holding on to for months. Months. I don't even know if I told you about this because it was something I received over our hiatus. And
Mm.
it was a gift that I received from our friend Chris, Vancouver Comic Junkie. So
Oh, nice.
for I don't know, it had to have been like 6 or 9 months ago. I'm telling you, it was a really long time ago because I saw
69 months.
6 to 9 months. 6 to 9 months. Anyway, I had seen Chris post a book on his Instagram, and I had mentioned to him, I was like, that book is amazing. Love the cover. Just thought it was incredible. And well, he mentioned, he goes, hey, I got an extra copy of this book. I'll just send it to you. The way Chris is, right? He's just like, give me your address. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, it took him, like I said, 6 to 9 months later. And then he messaged me. It was like, hey, I finally sent that package out to you. And I was like, oh, good, because I just moved. So I was trying to figure out where this box was going to actually go. And luckily for me, I ended up receiving the package. But what was in it, though, is the best part. So he didn't just send that book. I will show that book first, seeing that that's the one that prompted. So this is Eerie number 81. So this is an Eerie comic. It is the front cover is a play on the popular like King Kong, where King Kong is on on top of the
Yeah.
Empire State Building, and there are planes flying around, and he's trying to knock
King
down
Kong
the
Mosh.
planes. Yeah. But in King Kong's hands is a beautiful blonde woman, basically. Right? That's the original image. So this image is a play on that, and instead of it being King Kong on the top of the building, this one is a giant blonde woman, and in her hand is King Kong, or what appears to be King Kong. I don't even know if you can see that.
Well, I mean, is he King Kong if he's tiny like that? I mean, he's just
Well,
regular.
the way, here's my scenario. I like to think that is King Kong. He was just transported to a very large world where where he was standard size, and this woman
And
was
everybody-
now the giant monster. And I can't tell if the pilots in the planes are also like little King Kongs, but that would be funny too. Anyway, that was the book that spawned the AOK is what we'll call it, from Chris. But now I'm going to show you the other books he decided to send along with, because I don't want to say I'm more excited about these, but I might be more excited about these. This is Eerie number 6. This was, we've talked about Creepy a lot. Creepy and Eerie, both Warren Publishing, came out in the 60s with some of the best horror covers ever, right? I
Yeah.
I am I am convinced that these rival a lot of the pre-code horror covers as well. I don't know who did the cover. Let's see.
It's a lot of painted covers, huh?
Yeah, this is Moro. Let's see. The next one that he sent, Eerie #5. This one's a pretty famous cover. It's got Tyrannosaurus Rex on it. Yeah, I can't read the name on who did the cover for that either.
Which one is it?
Eerie #5.
Number 5. I'll find out for you. Give me a second.
You're going to be, I've got a short stack here, so I want to keep going through. This one, a little bit more beat up, and this is another Moro cover. This is Eerie #4. Eerie #4. Just a terrifyingly awesome cover. I love the colors on it, purple and blue and pink. Really, really great cover. And you might be starting to see a trend here. Here's the next one. Eerie #3. Eerie #3. Another I mean, it's not in terrible shape.
That's Frazetta.
Either. That is Frazetta. Oh man, I love that cover. That is Frazetta.
That looks nice, dude.
Yeah, giant fish man. And
Fish man.
It is kind of a fish man. And the last one here, which this one I believe is another Frazetta. Eerie #2. And that there is a fairly scarce book, my friend. Eerie #2 is not. Now, Eerie #1 might be the most scarce of all the Warren Publishing books. Eerie #1 is not easy to get your hands on. Chris did not send me Eerie #1, but I was extremely grateful to get this stack of Eerie 2 through 6. Like this is not cheap. Like he sent me really nice copies, and for an AOK, like I was blown away. My mind just melted. I was like, "Holy shit, Chris!" And then I sent him a message to thank him, and he acted like, "Oh, I got 100 copies of those things. That was nothing." I was like, "All right, well, great."
I'm the reason why they're scarce.
Yeah,
I have cornered the market on these Eerie's. Dude, #2 is Frank Frazetta, awesome cover, classic cover. It's also the first appearance of Cousin Eerie, so it's pretty. Yeah, also a key, so it's pretty dope. That's a really cool cover, man.
Yeah, the Eerie, the AOK, man. I just, man, super grateful for it. And just yeah, I was blown away. There was a recent sale actually of Eerie magazine #2. A 9.2 sold for $369. And yeah, so these are not these books anymore. They are not. I guess they're not cheap books. When we started, right, 2 years ago, I remember talking about Creepy and Eerie, and we were talking about how these books could be gotten for $20, right? I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
And they're not $20 books anymore. They're not. I mean, that's a 9.2, and I'm assuming that the one that Chris gave me it's not anywhere near that grade. But a mid-grade, I mean, that might be a $50, $60 book in the grade that he gave me. And like I said, it's not. There's no. There aren't any more $20 Creepy and Eerie. Not the lower level ones anyway. Not at 1 through 5.
Oh man, and the thing is like it's the same thing that I was telling you, like. Why not get some of these books by some of these famous artists, right? Like I'm looking at Eerie #25, which with a badass cover, right? And Jim Steranko is the cover art on this, the artist on it.
Nice.
So you got some, big hitters, big artists on these magazines that are painted covers, dope covers, and some of them are scarce. These are collectible books. Neil Adams, interior artwork by Neil Adams, like. You got a lot of cool stuff in these Eerie and Creepy, man, and yeah, like I foresee them continuing to rise.
Yeah, completely. And I don't know, these aren't going to be your skyrocket books that are going to go from $5 to $1,000 overnight kind of thing, right? This isn't Spider Boy, but we are going to get, we are going to see increases in these books as people start feeling like holy shit, the covers they're gorgeous, they're beautiful, and the artwork is in some cases terrifying. I have Creepy Magazine number 32 just kind of propped up over here on a little book stand that I have. And it's just in my new office. I was like, well, I'm going to put the books up that I like looking at the most. And that one was high up on the list. Yeah, that's it. I got those from Chris. Chris, thank you very much for sending the books. Really appreciate that. It is never necessary to be my friend to send me an A-OK, but if you do send me an A-OK, we will be friends. That's how it works.
That's how it works. So I'm still waiting to be friends with Chris. I will forward. I'm just joking, man. Chris is a really good friend, man. He's awesome. He did us a solid too by hosting. He's an honorary member of the Spectales family for hosting and helping us out. So we really appreciate him. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, 100%. So, Jesus, that is going to bring us to a conclusion of the recent pickups, which can only mean we now need to move on to
Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale.
the Grail Tale segment. And this is the one, listeners out there, please do not be alarmed. Do not get scared. Don't worry. We're not getting rid of the Grail Tale as you know it. In fact, if anything, this version of the Grail Tale might be slightly more dangerous. Would you say it's more dangerous, Jesus? Because it's almost like an infectious sort of thing. Because once we get into the Whale Tale, you yourself, the listener, might now have a shopping list after we get through this Whale Tale. Jesus, all the listeners out there, 2 years in, they're like, hey, we know what the Grail Tale is. We know, we look forward to the Grail Tale every week. What are you guys doing? What the hell are you doing getting rid of we're not getting rid of the Grail Tale, Jesus. Tell them what we're doing here. Tell them what the Whale Tale is.
We're talking about a whale tale. That's what we're calling it. And if you guys know Jake, like I know Jake, there will be a whale tale song here pretty soon, a bumper to get us into these whale tales. Because I already see the gears grinding in Jake's head right now.
I genuinely have a really good idea for it, but I'm not going to talk about it.
I'm sure we'll have something really cool for you guys, as we always do for the whale tale. So what is a whale tale, man? So we've talked about these books, or some of these books, to an extent, and we kind of don't want to retread those. I'm talking about like the books that we said that have been Hall of Fame or have been vaulted, like Tech 27, Action Comics 32, things like that. Like those books are like gone, right? Like for the normal regular collector, it's probably not going to happen for you unless you find something buried under somebody's land somewhere. I don't know. I don't even know how you can come across it, but and hopefully, I mean, one day you get wealthy enough and you get one. You say, hey guys, I got one, and we'll be like, hey, great job, man. Appreciate you. Just send it on to Spectales, and we'll display it for you at all times. But these are some other books that are also technically big books, or getting up there in the vault, but also maybe not as known, or not as I guess front and center, if you will, as some of these other books that everybody knows about because of the characters. The one we're talking about today is a perfect example of it. That's why we chose it. That's why we're going to talk about it, because there's so much things surrounding it, and why it's cool and why it's coveted. So, I mean, do you want to just get into it? Is that a fair representation of what a whale tale is, Jake?
Yeah. Ultimately, the Whale Tale is, this reminds me of when we had Chris from Comic Tropes. We have a lot of Chris friends, to be honest. This is a different Chris, everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Chris from Comic Tropes on YouTube, and he came on, and he didn't really have a Grail Tale because he hadn't gotten his Grail yet. And he specifically had said that it was his Great White Whale, which is a nice reference to Moby Dick. But the idea being that the Great White Whale, or the whale, is that book, that collectible you've yet to snag. And I don't think you can label just anything a whale. right? Like for
Mhm.
some people, the whale certainly could be something like a Hulk 181 or something like that, or a very high valued book. But sometimes a white whale could simply be something so scarce that you just can't find it, never gonna find it kind of thing. Uh, and
Yeah,
and you'll know because
like
it also becomes a story in itself because you're looking for years. And
yeah, like the book that Chris talked about was the Jaws comic or Jaws what was
manga,
it called?
Jaws
Manga.
manga,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Jaws manga. That was very difficult to find. It's out there. People know it's out there. It's been seen a couple times, but and from a value standpoint, right? It's I guess a couple thousand. He said $2,000-3,000, something like that. Which it's not a Tech 27, right? It's not something crazy like that, but it's still something. But it's not. More people would have access to that if it came up for sale. In other words, right? So it doesn't have to be super valuable. It just has to be scarce or something that is very difficult to get your hands on. Um, so yeah, that's a better definition of a whale tail than what I was able to do, Jake. Thank you.
You know what? I think your definition and my definition like stack, like multiplication. It's like yours plus mine equals grail tail, grail whale tail, whale grail tail.
Whale.
A whale. We're not starting new words again. Uh, So the whale tail here, Jesus, I think we have adequately described it. Listeners out there, as far as how often we're going to do this, when we have guests on, of course, we want their grail tail, and we are still going to be doing listener submitted grail tails. You know how much we love those, and we are doing a giveaway with some really, really awesome posters. Jesus, since we're recording this later after the fact, technically we haven't officially announced these posters, but by the time this episode drops, we will have announced that we are giving away special JJ Uncle Sam posters that if you reference all of our social media, you're going to be able to see what these look like. They're pretty badass. And they've got JJ as Uncle Sam pointing at you saying, I want your grail tail. And that's what we want. We want your grail tail. We want listener submitted grail tails. If you have not submitted a listener submitted grail tail to us, we will literally give you a free poster. And I don't just mean like this isn't some scrubby thing that we hand drew and put in. No, the artwork is amazing, done by Elliot Comic Art, who does all of our Tater Tot JJ artwork. And it is on high quality premium poster paper, and we're going to give it to you for free if you send us the listener submitted grail tail. So that's the pitch. Jesus, what'd you think? Was the pitch okay?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great pitch. I will add this. I mean, it's an exchange for a listener submitted grail tail. Now, we want legit grail tails, right? But also, let's say you have a friend who has an awesome grail tail, but he doesn't really like posters. Get him to submit it. We send him the poster. You get a poster. We get a grail tail. Everybody's happy.
Yeah,
Everybody's happy.
it's like a referral bonus at work when you refer somebody to actually get a job there. Only in this case, if you refer somebody to send us their grail tail, you'll get a poster out of it too. I listen.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to giving away multiple posters just to obtain one good grail tail. We want quality
Yeah,
though.
man,
All right.
it's so funny, man, because we really do love grail tail guys. Grail tails, we really do love them. So especially listener submitted grail tails, like those are the best for us.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love grail tails so much. I think I'm growing a tail.
That's a whale tail.
Jesus, you're lucky you weren't drinking water at that time. You just spit it out. All right.
Exactly.
Let's jump right into this whale tail though, because this whale tails are going to come up throughout season 3. I don't know exactly how many they're going to be. Jesus doesn't know how many they're going to be, and they're just going to pop up, kind of like the great white whale. You never know when the great white whale is going to appear, but when she does, she's a beaut.
Yes, indeed. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the comic book that we're going to be talking about right now for the whale tail. A lot of stuff around this book. Some of you guys may know it very well, understand why or what, and some may not. Some might be brand new to this and not know or ever seen this because again, how scarce it is. So I'm talking to none other from April of 1944, Suspense Comics number 3, with the cover art by Alex Schomburg, and it's considered to be the most valuable non-superhero comic book. And if you guys haven't seen this cover, which this is again why you collect Golden Age books, is because of the cover, because there's no key in it, there's no first appearance, and that stuff. It's just a Alex Schomburg cover. It's Suspense Comics number 3, a 10-cent cover. It has the bondage woman art on there, where she's the lady is bound by her arms behind her back, looking like you're seeing her back. She's looking away from you towards this red hooded figure, very, very muscular hooded figure with a sword about to come down onto her, I guess, and executing her, surrounded by hooded Nazis with Nazi symbols on their arms and on their chests, with the cliff overlooking the scene, and a what looks like a hero up top with a spear trying to, I guess, save the day. I mean, there's a moon in the background. There's what looks like birds or bats. It looks like it's a tropical scene with the fire in the middle and a palm tree on the right hand side of it. Red, vibrant colors, red, yellows, blues, guns shooting. There's so much action. It's a classic Schomburg cover, and it's just, it's super expensive, man. I mean, right now, the lowest you can get this book is probably about between $26,000 for a 0.5, and the high is over $200,000.
Good Lord.
This book came up on the photo journal guide that I just talked about.
Yep.
And just for reference, I know people are going to say, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's not even a 9. The highest grade you can get in this book is 11, which was a non-existent, known to have been printed, but haven't ever seen it. 10 is unique or close to it, less than 5 known. 9 is very rare, which is from 6 to 10 still exist. At the time of the printing of that book, the photo journal guide, this was given a 9 for very rare. Between 6 and 10 still existed in his estimation.
Wow.
And now looking at the census, on the census, there are 40 CGC copies. Now, again, this is just CGC books. These are books that have just been graded by CGC. It doesn't show any CBCS graded or any raw copies that are out there. This is just CGC census, 40 copies, 22 are universal. That means only 22 are blue label. The highest blue label grade is an 8.0. There's 4 qualified, so that's the green label, right? Green?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And 14 restored, which again, I think there's a lot of restored 14. I mean, if you're looking at the percentage, because back then, before CGC started all this stuff and was giving labels, it wasn't as bad to have a restored book. I think it was actually something common that comic book collectors did to their comic books, was restore them. I think the restoration being looked down upon is something more recent overall in the collecting community. So 14 restored. The last sale was a 1.0 qualified married cover with the centerfold, and it sold in January of this year, 2023, for $28,800. Then prior to that, April of 2022, a 4.5 qualified centerfold married sold for $55,200. So when you look at this book, at least for me, and this is just me, I'm just talking here, man, just talking. It's not a key. It's just the cover and the artist, and then the scarcity that make this book what it is. April of 1944, Suspense Comics number 3, the only big book, I guess, from the Suspense Comics line. The cover art by Alex Schomburg, and that's what makes it what it is. That's what makes it so coveted. So I don't know if you guys have seen that book, the cover. I think we may post something on this so you guys can take a look at it as the first Well Tale. I started seeing this book come up on Instagram probably about a month or two ago. And I wanted to do my research on. I think it was around Comic Con in San Diego because I think there was one for sale there. But yeah, so if you look at it, like if you really think about it, 44 CGC books in the sense that means only 44 individuals own a CGC copy of this book right now, as we speak. Is that not kind of insane though?
Oh, that's absolutely insane. But the Schomburg covers within the Suspense Comics line, I mean, there's so many classic ones. I would say that the two that I immediately recognize the most would be issue number 11, which is a very famous Schomburg cover, and number 8 with the spider with the skull, and that one is pretty iconic as well. I've seen that one a lot too. But I totally agree with
You
you.
said number 11.
Number 11 is a fairly
Okay,
popular one.
but that's LB Cole. LB Cole cover.
Oh, that's not Schomburg. Okay, LB
No,
Cole.
that's not Schomburg.
Well,
Yeah.
that's probably why it's even more popular. LB Cole. Everybody loves LB Cole.
Yeah, all the spider ones are LB Cole.
You're a spider one. But that Suspense comic number 3, God, that's such a sweet cover. But honestly, I would tell you, if you can get any of these, number 1 through number 12, all of them, I would feel extremely lucky to have.
Man, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, like the LB Cole covers with the spider, that skull spider, I think Ryan from Automatic Comics talked about them. They have a lot of like really vibrant colors on them. They're from the 1940s, 1943 all the way to 1946. But man, imagine collecting this. Like I remember having what was his name from Cheese and Keys come on and saying he was collecting the horrific series, which
Oh
is like
yeah.
14.
Yep.
So imagine collecting these 12 and you have to get number 3 to collect the entire series.
Oh
It's
man.
like one of the most valuable non-superhero comic book out there. And as far as Schomburg, to touch a little bit about what may or may not be talked about in a future something or another. Alex Schomburg, man, Schomburg covers are like super coveted and rightfully so, right? Like I'm gonna give you one what is it called description of his work, and it says Alex Schomburg was to comic books what Norman Rockwell was to the Saturday Evening Post. When it came to illustrating covers, there was simply no one else in Alex's league. Who do you think said that, Jake?
Kirby.
Stan Lee.
Wow.
Stan Lee. So that's why his I mean, you can almost all the time know if it's a Schomburg cover just because of the type of action. Like the way I describe it is, at least for me and for my brain to work, is like it's a still picture, but there's so much time depicted in that picture, and there's so much chaos going on because there's so many details. It's almost like a Where's Waldo thing going on, because there's like somebody's hitting something, somebody's firing off a gun, somebody's throwing a spear, somebody's yelling at somebody, but it's all within the frame of the cover, and it tells you a story within that cover of what happened during that specific time. So I just think it's, Schomburg. I've always liked Schomburg. I've told you, I also have other reasons why I like Schomburg, which we'll get into, or maybe not get into. I don't know, Jake. I don't know what's going to happen here later on or here now. I don't know about Schomburg. But yeah, I just think his covers are awesome. But I did want to, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about like why we talk about Golden Age and how they're, you collect the covers in Golden Age. When did it change? Was it Silver Age where now you collect the first appearance stuff or the origin of stuff or the first costume of stuff? Because
when superheroes really, you still look at the first appearance of superheroes, right? You can go back to, like you mentioned, Tech 27, things like that. But all the way through the Silver Age where new superheroes were being established what felt like monthly, right? In the 60s, it was exploding with Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four and just you name it. Just every month there was a new book with a new character that became beloved to somebody, right? And that's when everybody started, I think, going after the first issue, first appearance kind of thing. While on the other hand, what we were talking about earlier with Creepy and Eerie, the type of books that you could collect just because of the cover art, those books still existed. They just weren't as popular, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the thing about it too with like Schomburg, he left um in the middle during the whole seduction of the innocent stuff and the pre-code after the code started, or the comics code authority, and he went into sci-fi magazines. So if you're a Schomburg um collector, enjoyer, there's a lot of magazines out there that he painted that aren't part of the comic books realm per se, but they're still, I mean, they're just awesome. They're just awesome covers. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, you're talking about Eerie with Frank Frazetta and stuff like that. There's this fantastic magazine, and it has cover art by Schomburg, and it's all like sci-fi stuff. Like, there's one where it's like a rocket ship, but it's an ark, like Noah's Ark, and there's like animals going into that rocket ship, and it's from 1961. And he left comics because they weren't paying him anymore, and the magazines were paying him more. So he left, and then he came back in the 70s on Invaders, the Invaders from Marvel. So there's just so much with these golden age comic books and golden age artists that I get why before, back in the day, they would collect the covers, but also like now it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's just, now, is it scarcity? Is it just because it's old? Is it because it's always been? Is it because that's what the status quo is? That's why you collect those books. I don't know, but I still like them. But am I going to be able to pay $28,000 for one? Probably not.
No, but if you find one at a garage sale for like 25 cents, don't you think you should know what the cover looks like, right? Right? That's how
true.
When
That's
that
true.
whale sneaks up on you, you got to be prepared with the knowledge. That's what the whale tail
right.
is. I mean, we're not suggesting that everybody put this book on their gotta have it list before you die, because like most people there aren't enough of ththese books for us all to have it, everybody. That's the way it goes. That's why they're scarce. But in this particular case, man, filing away that imagery in the back of your mind, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Just in case you run into a book at a flea market, or swap meet, or your grandma's cupboards or something, wherever you might find books.
Yeah, and I've seen that, man. I've seen that cover, not the book itself, but I've seen like artwork with that cover, or tin, or like posters and stuff. I mean, why is that cover like, what's about that cover? What is it about that cover? And so when I finally dug deep into it and kind of understood what was going on with it, I understood why. There's a couple other books, and we'll get into them in the Well Tales, because there's some cool books out there that I think we all need to know about. And also, I mean, if you guys think of any Whale Tales, send them our way, man. We'll be happy to talk.
We
about
will
it.
also take a whale tail. We may even consider sending you a poster for the whale tail. But no, maybe not guaranteed. I don't know. It depends on the whale tail.
You're getting ahead of yourself. You're getting ahead of yourself right there.
All right, Jesus, thank you very much for sharing that. That was extremely informative, and I hope everybody puts that book on their list. That's Suspense number 3, Suspense Comics number 3. If you just Google Suspense number 3, you might get a different book. So keep in mind, it is Suspense Comics number 3. All right, that does lead us over to our final segment.
Speculation.
The speculation segment. Now, this is the one where we're going to talk about a book or a collectible that we think you should keep your eye on, and maybe want to pick up sometime in the near future, if you're the type of person that likes to help the hobby pay for itself, as Jesus and I both like to do on occasion, we will get something and we will become dirty flippers every once in a while, just you know what though? It's not to line our pockets, it's to line our walls and boxes with more comic books. It's the hobby paying for itself, Jesus, and I there is nothing dirty about it as far as I'm concerned.
Unless your name is Newbie.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Unless your name is Newbie, everybody loves you, Newbie. Don't worry about it.
It's a vicious, glorious cycle that ends up in more comic books.
Exactly. For everybody, including me. Jesus, let's go ahead. I'm gonna let you kick this off. What do you got today?
Man, I got a very cool thing that by the time you guys listen to this, I will already have snatched up, because I got to thinking when we were doing this well till I am a Alex Schomburg aficionado for many reasons. Some I've talked about today, some I'll talk on maybe something else. I don't even know. So I just like to talk about why I like Alex Schomburg, right? So I said, man, what is his first illustrations or his first artwork in either comics or magazines, right? And guess what? I found it, and it's actually pretty affordable.
Really?
So I'm talking about none other than Thrilling Wonder Stories, Volume 12, Number 1, from August of 1938.
Whoa.
1938.
And this book is affordable?
Right now, there are several of them at my comic shop, from low grade with the cover with the spine split from $80 all the way up to $180 for off-white with water damage. So pretty affordable book to get your hands on. First illustrations from Alex Schomburg in a magazine or a comic book, and it's called Thrilling Wonder Stories, pulp stories from 1938. So that's my my speculation. Obviously, the more this guy's stuff goes up, the more this is going to be worth. I mean, guys, 1938. That's what 80 something years ago or something to that extent. I mean, how many of these can be out there, right? Like,
and what number is it?
It's volume 12, issue 1.
Volume 12, issue 1.
August 1938.
Gotcha. You are correct indeed. It is available, and not too expensive as far as the first ever featured art by one of the most popular comic artists of all time, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm looking at one right now that I'm probably gonna buy. Don't buy it, Jake.
Well, I already bought all three. I'm cornering the market.
Jake, don't do it, Jake. $29.99. I'm gonna buy it right now from eBay. So
lots of them available and out there, everybody. Not lots. There are some available and out there, everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can find. I'm sure you can find these. Not a lot of people are gonna know. The one that I'm buying it from doesn't know where it is. This one too, $60 for the same book from August of 1938. I mean, it's the first illustrations, right? Like of Alex Schomburg. I forgot how old he was. How old was he in 1938? Let me see. He was born in 05. So what is that?
33.
He was 33. Wow. That's wild.
Yeah. Well, it's cool, and I think it is a very fitting and appropriate speculation. So thank you for sharing. Yep. I think that was a great one. I, on the other hand, am going to go with I guess it's going to be a little bit of I got two, and part of it is slightly based on the recent, I'm going to say, enjoyment I found in the movie Blue Beetle. Now, this is not related to Blue Beetle, but I will tell you that, personally speaking, after having seen that movie, I believe the DC universe is in good hands and headed in a very great direction. I enjoyed the movie thoroughly, and I do think now, to me, this movie was way more like a Marvel movie than it was the previous DC films. And I'm not here to critique the film or anything like that, but what made those Marvel films great, and also what made the characters popular to collect, right? People went nuts over the lead characters that we had not seen with DC, right? We had talked about that in multiple episodes. I think we even devoted damn near a whole episode to talking about how DC movies just don't move the meter. They don't move the meter when it comes to comics. They're separate. And that's great, but Marvel had done it. Now, I don't know if it's exactly going to happen or not, but I do think that there is room to grow in a lot of DC films, books. And obviously with James Gunn, it feels like there's a little bit of a turn happening when it comes to DC. And it feels positive. So I do recommend Blue Beetle if you have not seen it. In this particular case, I'm going to recommend a couple of books that I believe they should be in a collection anyway. One of which I actually just added to my personal collection, but I couldn't use it as a recent pickup. It is The Killing Joke, the first printing of Batman the Killing Joke. I ran into this at a local comic shop, and I was doing a little bit of research into the book, and because the original, they did 9 printings of it, like an insane number, all within a year's time. I don't know why. The printings was just like, nope, we didn't print enough. We got to make more. We didn't do it. Obviously, Alan Moore, great book. And you can tell, I believe the first printing is the only printing where the embossed copy on the title is green, like a lime green. So look for that. Very affordable, like incredibly affordable for one of the most iconic Batman stories of all time. Can't recommend that one enough. But the other one, and this one might have a little bit more speculation behind it, and that is Watchmen #1. So 2 Alan Moore books, actually.
Nice.
Which I'm a big Alan Moore fan anyway. But Watchmen #1, I've always considered, I got Watchmen #1 in a near mint copy for like $30. And that was like 6 or 8 months ago. It wasn't that long ago. I can't remember when it was, but it wasn't that long ago. And it was just, I mean, it was in a case. The LCS did have it like displayed, but it wasn't expensive by any means. And I believe they recently announced, Warner Brothers announced that they're going to do an animated Watchmen feature. So
nice.
Now, I don't know if it is a direct interpretation of the Watchmen, the original Watchmen series. I'm curious as to why they're doing it animated. Obviously, I think the Watchmen movie, I actually really enjoyed the Snyder version of it. I saw it in theaters, and I remember it. I remember being in awe. I remember thinking that there were shots from the film that were just taken directly out of the comic, which really floored me at the time. But if they're going to be doing an animated remake, I'm all for it. I'm interested to see. But Watchmen #1, I think it's still a pretty cheap book. I think you can still get this book for under $30. Yeah, I mean, depending on the condition of the book. But yeah.
So here's the thing with that book, man. That book to me is like a staple in a collection.
Yes.
because generally speaking, when you see that book, you rarely see it by itself. It's usually with the whole Watchmen series, 1 through I think 12. I think
Yeah.
it's a 12-part series. And I, been fortunate to, whenever I do pick up collections, I think I've had 3 or 4 of the entire
Oh, nice.
collection. Yeah, so it's just a staple of collections, man, because it's such a good story. It's so cool. It's so different. It was made into I mean, I feel a very well received comic book movie, which again I enjoyed as well too. I really like that movie. I also like the Watchmen series on HBO that we're not going to get to see any more of, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then also you mentioned DC. I mean, DC animation. We've talked about this in the past, man. If anybody's hitting the right stride with the storytelling, is DC animation. All the DC animation in the past, I want to say 10 years, has been legit. And if you guys haven't watched those, Constantine ones or the Batman ones or any of those DC animations, you're missing out because they are really, really good. So yeah, that's a great pickup, man. That's a great one. I have to go digging through my boxes now, go back and see how many I still have, if I still have any. Because
Yeah.
I like to sell them as a package, man, so people can read them.
I completely agree. I was going to say, for the most part, a lot of people, this is a staple for most comic collections, but I think the staple usually is just the graphic novel, right? The completed where it's already all put together.
The compendium, yeah.
Yep, I have that, and I definitely recommend it to anybody who wants to read comics for the first time. I love the people who are like, oh, the superhero comics, they're all, Captain America type stuff. No, you can get in the dark stuff. Everybody listening probably knows it. If you're listening, you haven't read The Watchmen, please try. Please do.
Read it.
There's great stuff. It really is still stands the test of time. It really does. So I wanted to throw those out there because of how excited I was based on Blue Beetle for DC, and I seemed like a good enough time to do it.
Yeah, Blue Beetle was great. I also watched it on Friday. The Friday came out. Phenomenal movie. Really hits close to home. We've talked a little bit about it. We might talk some more about it at a later point. Really good movie. I definitely recommend it. Go watch it, guys. If you guys haven't seen it, just give it a chance. I think you guys will enjoy it. Like Jake said, it does have a lot of Marvel-esque.
It gave me kind of Iron Man meets Spider-Man feelings.
Meets the Punisher feeling a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of that there. All right. Well, Jesus, we've done it. That we've gotten to the end of yet another episode. Everybody out there listening, thank you so much for joining us. We do highly recommend that you reach out to us via email and or social media. You can find us on Instagram and X, Twitter, whatever it's being called currently. We may be finding a new solution for that debacle. But until then, we're still technically over there. Or you can always email us, spectalespodcast@gmail.com. We are genuinely looking for listener-submitted Grail Tales. Please send us those, and we will send you a badass poster in return. Other than that, thank you all for listening. Catch you next week.